The Bikini Atoll is a group of islands and coral atolls that make up the Marshall Islands. It is also the site of the largest nuclear device ever exploded by the United States. It is not a quick trip.
266, proceed on to Delta Romeo. To our next stop.
Beneath the ocean, a coral reef thrives among the wrecks and ships used in the tests, but on the land, the devastating impact of the test remains. Brief history lesson. During World War II, Japan used the Marshall Islands as a strategic outpost. The US took control towards the end of the war. After World War II was over, US President Truman directed the Army and the Navy to continue testing nuclear weapons. And because of the remote location of the Bikini Atoll, the Navy came here. First with Operation Crossroads.
Hundreds of expert eyes will focus on these floating targets as a destructive force determines whether existing Navy vessels are obsolete.
And continuing with Operation Castle.
Its ominous cloud rose to a record height of better than 20 miles above the Earth's surface.
Between 1946 and 1958, 67 nuclear tests were conducted in the Marshall Islands. 23 of these tests, including the largest, took place on the Bikini Atoll. Additional tests were conducted on Enewetak Atoll. Fallout from the bombs spread to the other atolls and to the local population. It contaminated the land and water and had devastating health effects. Many ships left from the test remain deep underwater here. We're moving position of the dive boat. We're getting ready to anchor off one of the wrecks here inside the lagoon. One way to understand what happened here is to go underwater. I'm on a liveaboard dive boat. It's a private dive tour boat. The other divers here came for the experience of this remote UNESCO World Heritage Site. You look like a classic 60s action hero, Martin.
We're in the Bikini Atoll now. We're moored where it says prohibited area.
Why is it prohibited?
That's where you can see these the wrecks from Operation Crossroads. So normally you can't come into this area, but obviously we've got permission to be diving here.
Okay guys, we're recording sound. Diving wrecks at 160 feet requires a lot of equipment. 2 tanks of air, that's 21% oxygen, which is like the air we breathe at the surface here. Then I have a 15% oxygen and 95% oxygen. That is to limit the decompression time. I'm diving with 2 cameras in Isolite housings. I have a helmet when there's an overhead environment, 2 dive computers, the reels, so if you penetrate the wrecks, you have a line so you can get out, and of course, a mask so I can see. Let's go diving.
Nowadays it's actually quite hard to imagine what went on here. So just to look around you, you know, it looks like paradise. And it is, but it has got a hidden secret.
Divers look like very small ants compared to these massive battleships that were then sunk by this insanely big blast. What I keep thinking about when I look at the other divers down there and look at the ships is really the incredibly destructive power unleashed here. It's very difficult to comprehend the scale. Diving at this depth at 55 meters requires special training. It is dangerous. The elevated pressure can cause nitrogen narcosis, which is like being intoxicated, impairing judgment and coordination. Exploring the wrecks can be disorienting. You can get lost and sediment can blur your vision.
What am I thinking when I'm underwater?
Tom Longo is one of the divers on the trip.
On the same hull where you see intact glass portals, you see rippled steel. And you can't imagine what else could do that other than the power of an atom bomb. At any given time, your field of vision is probably not more than 5% of the whole wreck. It's almost like stopping time.
And when you experience the aftermath of that, death is very close, it becomes very prominent, and destruction is, you know, it's very beautiful, but also incredibly frightening. Tom?
Hey, to be under that ship, it's an amazing feeling.
How do you get permission to dive in a prohibited area full of nuclear wrecks?
Yeah, okay, it's quite interesting. We approached the Bikini Council. Bikini Council, they manage access to the atoll, the islands, the surrounding waters. As part of the settlement with the US, what's really unusual is the wrecks were given to the Bikinians. The money we give to the Bikini Council, and obviously that goes to supporting them and their community.
So basically the tourist money for atomic tourists coming here goes back to the Bikini Islanders and Marshall Islands?
It does, yes.
A locally owned and operated land-based dive program on Bikini closed in 2008 after it became too expensive to maintain. This boat pays a fee of about $5,000 per trip, with roughly 12 trips a year.
There's 7 people on Bikini at the moment, kind of like caretakers. We had a request to bring out some parts for their generator, and also we get requests for personal items. There's no shops on Bikini. It's kind of a bit like a postal service, yeah.
Hey, how are you? Welcome to Bikini. Above ground, the Bikini Atoll remains uninhabitable. The coconuts are radioactive, the groundwater is contaminated, even the coconut crabs have radioactive traces. In essence, it's safe enough to be here, you just can't put anything in your body. There are 7 caretakers, they look after some of the structures, and they also keep the airstrip operational. And one of them is Dick. Where are we going now, Dick?
We're going to the biggest bunker.
You have a lot of houses for 7 people.
This one is for the transport salt water to water.
Ah, so you make your own water there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is the bunker that was used to protect some of the soldiers during the nuclear tests. It's been here for more than 70 years, and it's showing its age.
There's a smell that's musty. Yeah.
Marking of the sample tree. It's for the Department of Energy.
You can see the tree plantations that are planted in rows. Let's have a look. The palm trees were planted in the 1960s as part of the island's rehabilitation. Later they became part of a US government study on radiation and decontamination.
I have a daughter too.
You have a daughter?
Yeah.
How old is she?
She is 2, almost 3.
Oh, nice. When you work here, how long do you work here for?
We go back to the main island every 3 months. You can even stay here more if you want to make more salary for your families.
What do you miss?
Well, I do miss my family. You know, when I'm here, it's really far away from home.
Kwajalein and other islands became the resettlement locations for the Marshallese affected by the fallout from the tests. The moves were difficult and poorly supported. Some of the islands had been sparsely populated and weren't ready for the resettlement. It simply did not have the infrastructure. When the atomic testing finished, the Bikini Islanders petitioned to return to their original homes as promised. In 1968, US President Johnson approved their return to Bikini. But later tests showed that the fallout from the nuclear bombs had entered the land-based food chain, and the residents showed an unhealthy level of radiation in their bodies. So they were forced to move yet again. Radioactive waste from Enewetak was contained in an unlined concrete structure called the Runit Dome. It was only meant to be temporary, but it was never replaced. Now there are concerns that the waste is seeping into the groundwater. In 1986, the US and Marshall Islands signed a compact of free association, which allows Marshallese residents to travel, work and live in the US. A trust fund was also created to support the country long term. The compact included a full and final settlement of claims connected to the nuclear testing program. Claims were paid out according to the Marshall Island Nuclear Claims Tribunal, but the awards were greater than the settlement grant, and therefore the money ran out. The local government filed in 2000 to receive additional funding, but is still pending with the US Congress. According to RMI Ambassador to the US, Gerald Zacchias, the nuclear issue remains unresolved. In 2018, a National Nuclear Commission was established to find a resolution for the nuclear testing program. Alson Keeling is part of the commission.
I could safely say that about 90% of Bikinians has never seen Bikini Atoll before in their life. And about half of this population, Bikinian population, are living in the States.
He hopes that telling this story inspires the younger generation to help their home country. Now, 70 years after the first bombs were tested, the Bikini Atoll remains uninhabitable. For me, it really puts action and consequences in perspective, as the environmental impacts are intergenerational. Do you think anything good came out of the test?
In the long term, no. I don't think the test really achieved anything that we couldn't find out by other means.
In an email, the US Ambassador to RMI, Karen Stewart, confirmed that. The United States recognizes the effects of its nuclear testing, and we have accepted and acted on our responsibility to the people of Republic of the Marshall Islands. We have honored our commitments to the affected populations of the Northern Atoll and continue to do so.
One of the ironic things about the tests is since the Bikinians left, there's very little human activity there. So that's actually give the wildlife a chance to recover, and it's doing quite well. So roundabout way, it's one of the strange benefits of what went on.
The Marshall Islanders we spoke to wanted people to understand the impact of the testing so it will never happen again.
I just feel very sad for the Bikinians. They became the first nuclear nomads. Taking people to Bikini, I actually feel quite privileged. The wrecks are a physical reminder of what actually happened there. The Oz, got a story for the Bikinians, which I think is very important. And that story, doesn't get forgotten.
Couldn't know. Have received its warning.